Our world is changing moment by moment, hour by hour, day by day, season by season. In every season, the earth and our place on it offers us new context of contemplation, new and changing ways that assist us in making sense of life. It is now officially winter for us here in Delaware. It's a little colder, and we in our world must adapt to that. How do our spirits adapt? As we worship today, that's one question we are asking. Is there anything we can learn from watching the world, the place of our birth, and the context of our life now unfold, change, transform? In these moments, let us be attentive to the world outside ourselves and the world inside ourselves. There is meaning to be made. There is wisdom to be found. May we be open to it. Our gathering music for today is Winter from Vivaldi's Four Seasons, and this version features violinist Anastasia Petrashak. This was recorded in the Basilica Superiore di San Francesco de Assisi in Italy at the end of 2020. Enjoy Vivaldi.
Proseguiamo ora con un capolavoro di Antonio Vivaldi estratto da una delle sue opere più celebri, Le Quattro Stagioni. Con l'orchestra del Teatro Carlo Felice di Genova torna sul palco di Assisi il violino di Anastasia Petrishak, stella appena 26enne, cresciuta alla scuola del grande Salvatore Accardo.
Good morning. My name is Karma Amos, and I'm honored to serve as the minister of the Unitarian Universalists of Central Delaware and to welcome you to worship this morning. We are so glad that you're here, and we hope that you'll find ample room in this community for your spirit. I want to acknowledge that our winter theme for today's worship only makes sense in our hemisphere. Other parts of the world are in the heat of summer right now, but we are not. And so we, as I hope they do, are trying to make meaning from our context currently. And it's important for us to say this because too often in the world, the entire narrative centers on the US, while ignoring that our winter holidays are quite balmy for many others. And I think saying this out loud is one way that we can at least try to be aware of and perhaps lessen the US centrism that is problematic for the world and for us. So today we seek wisdom from winter, even as we acknowledge that it is only winter where we are, not everywhere. Let me remind you this morning that in addition to our worship each Sunday at 10, we meet on Tuesday nights at 7 for a more informal time of check-in and sharing. We invite you to consider joining us for that gathering. And now, as we prepare ourselves even more fully for worship, let us take a deep breath and moment of silence together. And know this: whoever you are, whomever you love, wherever you've been, whatever you've done, whatever your religious beliefs are or aren't, you are welcome in this spiritual community. However you move in this world, how much or how little is in your bank account or wallet, however you are feeling in these moments we share, you and all of who you are welcome in this spiritual community. We are all enhanced by being together.
Good morning, my name is Gina and I'm a member of UUCD, and this morning I will be doing the chalice lighting. We light this chalice reminding ourselves that Unitarian Universalists around the globe light chalices in communion with us. The chalice lighting words this morning are from Ben Soul. Let us hold a quiet moment together as our chalice is lit. As the wild wind bites, so does the still flame warms us. As the deep snow blocks our doors, so does the gentle flame bring us out. As the crackling cold air stops our breath, so does the radiant flame draw from us the words we need to give and to receive. Words of greeting, words of comfort, words of solace, words to challenge our minds, and words to bring us to action. Let us gaze upon this, our common flame, so that we remember who we are and what we can do when we are together. Please join in our unison affirmation. The words are in the chat box. Love is the spirit of this church and service its law. This is our great covenant to dwell together in peace, to seek truth and love, and to help one another. Please sing along in your own environment with our opening song, Gathered Here.
Gathered here in the mystery of the hour, gathered here in one strong body, gathered here in the struggle and the power, spirits draw near, gathered here in the
Each week at UUCD, we include a brief UU moment in our worship service that serves to make us aware of and to nurture our connection to the larger body of Unitarian Universalists and the Unitarian Universalist Association that binds us together. Today, we focus on the seventh principle of Unitarian Universalism, the respect for the interdependent web of all existence of which we are a part, and the sixth source of our living tradition, the sources of wisdom from which we draw inspiration. That sixth source is spiritual teachings of earth-centered traditions, which celebrate the sacred circle of life and instruct us to live in harmony with the rhythms of nature. While it has not always been articulated as such, Unitarian Universalists have always honored, and we do so with more focus now, the wisdom of the earth, her seasons, and the cycles that we live through together. This helps us to understand more fully that we need one another to survive, and it is how we must work together if we are to honor the knowledge coming from science and the earth itself. One young UU, motivated by this tradition and by outrage about what is happening to his native state of Florida, is a young man, Levi Drawheim. He is the youngest of 21 plaintiffs in the landmark 2015 case of Juliana versus the United States, in which children and young people argued that the government is violating the public trust doctrine and their Fifth Amendment rights to life, liberty, and property by failing to reduce carbon emissions and to protect natural resources. In 2018, Drawheim received the Unitarian Universalist Ministry for the Earth's Guardian of the Future Award. Let's hear from him what he hoped to accomplish in this lawsuit.
Okay, so you're here because I'm part of a lawsuit with 20 other youth plaintiffs that are suing the U.S. government because they're violating our constitutional right to a clean, sustainable, livable planet. So I know that I'm 10 years old and I can't vote, but when we win this lawsuit, we're not asking for money. We want them to make a science-based climate recovery plan.
Unfortunately, on January 17, 2020, the U.S. Court of Appeals of the Ninth Circuit ordered the dismissal of this case, which was originally filed in 2015, while asserting that the plaintiffs had gathered compelling evidence about the impacts of climate change. The Ninth Circuit ultimately concluded that the plaintiffs lacked standing to bring the suit in question. Levi, just 7 when the case started, is now 14 and a climate activist who has a Facebook account with 594 followers. He and other young people in Florida have continued to look for ways to use the legal system to try to force state authorities to reduce our dependence on fossil fuels. Most recently, he and 160 other young Floridians filed a petition for rulemaking with the Florida Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services, asking that they establish a goal to generate 100% of Florida's electricity from renewable energy by 2050. This morning, Wayne told us that he is delivering the service at a UU church in Indiana this very morning. So exciting that Unitarian Universalism is nurturing this kind of activism.
Good morning. My name is Cindy Hesseltine. I'm a founding member of UUCD. And today I'm going to read Thomas's Snowsuit. It's by Robert Munch, and the illustrator is Michael Marchenko. One day, Thomas's mother bought him a nice new brown snowsuit. When Thomas saw that snowsuit, he said, "That's the ugliest thing I've ever seen in my life. If you think I'm going to wear that ugly snowsuit, you're crazy." Thomas's mother said, We will see about that. The next day, when it was time to go to school, the mother said, Thomas, please put on your snowsuit. And Thomas said, no. His mother jumped up and down and said, Thomas, put on that snowsuit. And Thomas said, no. So Thomas's mother picked up Thomas in one hand, picked up the snowsuit in the other hand, and she tried to stick them together. They had an enormous fight, and when it was done, Thomas was in his snowsuit. Thomas went off to school and hung up his snowsuit. When it was time to go outside, all the other kids jumped into their snowsuits and ran out the door, but not Thomas. The teacher looked at Thomas and said, Thomas, please put on your snowsuit. Thomas said, no. The teacher jumped up and down and said, Thomas, put on that snowsuit. And Thomas said, no. So the teacher picked up Thomas in one hand, picked up the snowsuit in the other hand, and she tried to stick them together. They had an enormous fight. And when they were done, the teacher was wearing Thomas's snowsuit and Thomas was wearing the teacher's dress. Well, when the teacher saw what she was wearing, she picked up Thomas in one hand and tried to get him back into his snowsuit. They had an enormous fight. And when they were done, the snowsuit and the dress were tied into a great big knot on the floor, and Thomas and the teacher were in their underclothes. Just then, the door opened and in walked the principal. The teacher said, it's Thomas. He won't put on his snowsuit. Well, the principal gave his very best principal look and said, Thomas, put on your snowsuit. And Thomas said, no. So the principal picked up Thomas in one hand, he picked up the teacher in the other hand, and he tried to get them back into their clothes. And when he was done, the principal was wearing the teacher's dress, the teacher was wearing the principal's suit, and Thomas was still in his underwear. Then from far out in the playground, someone yelled, Thomas, come out and play. Thomas ran across the room, jumped into his snowsuit, got into his boots in 2 seconds, and ran out the door. The principal looked at the teacher and said, hey, you have on my suit. Take it off right now. The teacher said, oh no, you have on my dress. You take off my dress first. Well, they argued and argued and argued, but neither one wanted to change first. Finally, Thomas came in from recess. He looked at the principal and he looked at the teacher. Thomas picked up the principal in one hand. He picked up the teacher in the other hand. They had an enormous fight and Thomas got everybody back into their clothes. The next day, the principal quit his job, moved to Arizona, where nobody ever wears a snowsuit. The end.
Good morning. My name is Yolanda, or Yolanda as pronounced in my birth country. I am currently the chair of the Social and Environmental Justice Committee, and it is now time for joys and concerns when we offer one another the opportunity to share very briefly what is most on our hearts right now, life's celebrations and concerns. As you do so, we invite you to light a candle in your own space. Through the action of sharing and kindling a flame, we give energy to our best thoughts, meditations, sympathies, celebrations, and prayers. And we hold these as sacred in our collective hearts. We would also like to invite anyone new to our community to introduce yourselves if you would like. We welcome you warmly and would be pleased to light a candle in your honor of your connection with us and whatever joys or concerns you carry in your hearts. At this time, we invite you to change your view to gallery view in the upper right-hand corner of your screen so that you can see everyone who is here. And as you feel led, please unmute your microphone and share your joy or concern and light your candle, if you have one. You can watch the mute signals on the lower left of each person's video stream to see if anyone else is unmuted. It's best if we share one at a time. Please mute your mic after you have shared. We light one final candle for the joys and concerns that were not spoken by those of us here and in solidarity with others in our community who could not be with us today. As Unitarian Universalists, a central part of our worship in person and online is the opportunity we all have to practice the art of generosity and the spiritual practice of gratitude. Our gifts to our congregation
Her favorite part.
What do you think?
I don't know.
are what allow our communities to live into our calling and mission. We are grateful to you for the many ways that you support our community, including your financial pledges and offerings. Your gifts matter, and it's one of the ways that you make this world a better place. As a reminder, Compassion and Choices is the Share the Plate designated charity for January. Compassion and Choices is the nation's oldest, largest, and most active nonprofit organization committed to improving care and expanding options for the end of life. Recent e-blasts include detailed information on the ways that you can donate to Compassion and Choices. We thank you for your passion and your generosity. For those who are making pledges or who want to contribute to UUCD, please visit www.uucd.org and click on Support UUCD for more information about how to donate online or by mail. Our offertory music is Winter Song by Sarah Bareilles and Ingrid Michelson. This version is performed by Home Free.
This is my winter song to you. The storm is coming soon. It rolls in from the sea. My voice a beacon in the night. My words will be your light to carry you to me. Is love alive? Is love alive? Is love? They say that things just cannot grow beneath the winter snow, or so I have been told. They say we're buried far, just like a distant star I simply cannot hold. Is love alive? Is love alive? Is love? You're not where you I still believe in summer days. The seasons always change, and life will find a way. I'll be your harvester of light and send it out tonight so we can start again. Is love alive? Is love alive? Is love alive? Whoa. This is my winter song. December never felt so wrong, 'cause you're not where you belong, inside my arms. This is my winter song to you. The storm is coming soon. It rolls in from the sea. My love, a beacon in the night. My words will be your light to carry you to me. Is love alive? 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 Is love alive?
Good morning. I'm Mina Gurman, and I will be reading today from Patricia Fagnoli in her book, Winter Grace. Winter Grace. If you have seen the snow under the lamppost, piled up like a white beaver hat on the picnic table, or somewhere slowly falling into the brook to be swallowed by water, then you have seen beauty and known it for its transience. And if you've gone out in the snow for only the pleasure of walking barely protected from the galaxies, the flakes settling on your parka like the dust from just born stars, the cold walking with you. The cold walking with you, as if from long sleeping, then you can understand how, more often than not, truth is found in silence. How the natural world comes to you if you go out to meet it. Its icy dishes filled with dead weeds, its vacant birdhouses and dens full of the sleeping. But this is the slowed down season, held fast by darkness, and if no one comes to keep you company, then keep watch over your own solitude. In the stillness, you will learn with your whole body the significance of cold and the night, which is otherwise always eluding you.
I couldn't have known many weeks ago, when planning this worship service on the theme of the wisdom of winter, that we would have such a wonderful backdrop against which to reflect together. I know that not everyone shares my joy that we have over a foot of snow, and I don't want to minimize the damage the storm has caused. Yet I am delighted by the snow-covered world lying just outside my window as we worship this morning. You're seeing my backyard behind me virtually, and I'm gazing at the long icicles on my neighbor's house sparkling in the sun. It is beautiful. When I was growing up, the things that we talked about most often in worship, the things that we read, were so-called scriptures. Sacred texts written and edited by the ancients, passed down through the ages and treasured as tradition. Now, those are fine sources of wisdom still, but I could never quite accept the fact that they were it. you know, the end all be all, the only place for us to look for wisdom, authority, or spiritual revelation. I always knew that sacred texts from any tradition could not alone contain or mediate all that we need to know or learn about what it means to truly live well in this world. And if we believe in something bigger than ourselves, a spirit of life or goodness by whatever name we call it, that is itself alive, then it must surely still be speaking, providing new revelations or repeating messages that we have been slow to receive. In other words, there must still be new wisdom, fresh insights for us to access today. And I love that Unitarian Universalism has named so many sources as a resource and foundation for our faith, including our own personal experience of the transcendent mystery. And it wasn't that long ago, actually, in 1995, that the UUA officially amended our sources of the living tradition to include the sixth source that was mentioned earlier. Earth-centered traditions that celebrate the circle of life and instruct us to live in harmony with the rhythms of nature. And indeed, the rhythms of nature do have a lot to teach us. And so it is that today we open ourselves up for some of those lessons. More specifically, today we pause to listen, observe, and learn from the season of winter. In fact, of all the seasons, winter, perhaps more than most, almost forces us to pause and take note of it. Winter, you may have noticed, is a bit of an exhibitionist. It enjoys stopping everything so that it can be the center of attention. For example, here in Delaware, the kind of snow we've had this weekend stops everything for a while, doesn't it? It brings normal life, whatever that is, to a halt. So seldomly do we have deep snow here that the infrastructure of our transportation network, among other things, is stalled outright and relatively slow to recover. My wife, Diane, who is a native of the far north of Canada, where there are about 8 months of constant snow, often jokes that it seems like there's only one snowplow operating in the entire state of Delaware. An exaggeration, to be sure. But it is true that among other things, winter slows us down. And that's where I'd like to start reflecting on a few nuggets of winter's wisdom this morning. Winter's imperative begins with the command to slow down. We, particularly in the so-called Western world, are so busy all the time. In fact, we wear our busyness as a badge of honor sometimes, proof that we're important, doing enough, worth something. We, and that's the royal we, and I'm a primary and repeat offender of this, we schedule our lives so completely with back-to-back engagements, meetings, tasks, errands. We rush through the things we do, and then we rush to the next thing. We rush and rush and rush, so much so that we miss some of the best bits of life. And winter says phooey to that kind of lifestyle. Winter says, stop, because you know what? That's canceled. No one can get there. It's not safe. So slow down. Take a snow day. Leave the trappings of your busy, fast-paced life for a while and simply be where you are. Breathe. I know it's just science, but I like to imagine that the reason we can see our breath in the cold is rooted in winter's wisdom to breathe and pay attention to the breath. The second thing winter invites us to do while we're slowed, paused, relaxed, breathing, is to notice. To notice. Winter gently whispers to us, pay attention. Did you see that the world changed? The earth is blanketed in snow. If you didn't notice the subtle changes last month or last season, you can't help but notice now. Winter implores us to let our senses wake up to the beauty, the grace, as the poet Patricia Fargnoli names it, the gift of being alive. I love the images that she captures in that poem of the snow blown up under the lamppost or stacked up like a white beaver hat on the picnic table, or the thousands of absolutely unique snowflakes falling in the water only to dissolve into the larger source. If you've noticed, if you've seen these things, she says, then you've seen beauty and known it for its transience. Winter tells us to notice, to pay attention to the beauty, which cannot be captured. As hard as we try with our smartphone cameras and our social media postings, it can be hinted at, but it cannot be captured. That grandeur can't be so stilled or distilled. And so we really, really must take it all in while we can and appreciate it for the time it's here. The third lesson that I learned from winter is this: be careful. And I mean that in two ways. First, be careful as in be cautious. You can easily slip and fall on the ice. Even the morning frost is slick in places you don't expect. I notice when it's winter that it matters where I put my feet and how fast I move them. And so I'm careful. I watch where I'm going. The same is amplified, of course, when we're in a car, but the lesson is the same. Be careful so you can stay safe. The second way that I mean this is be careful, as in be careful. In winter, you have to take care of one another. I have seen such generosity just in my little neighborhood. The same kind that Phil talked about earlier. My neighbor, Mike, comes and shovels my deck. My other neighbors on the other side, Linda and Vita, help dig out our cars because they love to do that. I see people down the street walking over to check on the woman whose husband died this year and who now lives alone. Others stop to assist the car that's gone into the ditch. Shelters that could be housing the homeless all year always open up in winter because it's so vital that people have a place to stay when it's cold. Winter gives us additional motivations and additional opportunities to be full of care, careful for the people around us. It provides chances to amplify our kindness and compassion because we are all in it together. To tweak a scripture from the New Testament, snow falls on the just and the unjust alike. The fourth thing winter does is to remind us to tend to the basics. We often make things so complicated. In winter, what's most important, though, is that we stay warm and eat and care for the bodies that we sometimes take for granted or overlook. We must tend to them because if we don't, they will remind us. When it's bitterly cold out, the winds are frigid and racing at 50 miles an hour. Even the most rugged of people need an extra layer of protection. Non-sensible people like me, who can't be bothered to wear anything but flip-flops most of the year, have to dig out the boots in winter, or the feet will ultimately protest. With regard to food, as we've seen this weekend, winter storms drive us to the grocery stores to stock up if there's anything left. We remember in winter that the simple day-to-day basics require our attention. The same is true for the creatures around us. The birds that flutter about unnoticed much of the time need a little extra help. So many of us fill the feeders that provide for the birds and the squirrels as well, obviously. And our pets also remind us that their limited basic needs demand our attention and assistance, and that this too is a way of loving. The fifth thing that I notice is that once we've done all that, once we've slowed down and noticed and been careful and tended to the basics, winter gently reminds us that it is okay for us to rest, replenish, and reflect. Literally, the wisdom here is that we need to take a nap. Just as the rhythms of nature are a source of wisdom, the rhythms of our own bodies are as well. Bears literally hibernate to accomplish this. But we also need longer periods of rest to replenish our energy. And some of that resting and relaxing time might be well spent in reflection. Winter invites us to snuggle up with a blanket, a cup of tea, or your warm beverage of choice, and think for a minute, just think. In the same way that winter makes us shelter inside physically, it provides encouragement to go inside ourselves and reflect. Sometimes technology even underscores winter's invitation because the power or the internet goes out and we have no choice but to turn away from the computer, the television, the smartphone, our other preoccupations, and reflect. Winter creates a space for introspection, a time when we can focus on what's most important. Let some of the things that have been buzzing around in our minds and hearts sink a little deeper and make connections that help us apply the wisdom that we've collected. And while all of that is happening, the sixth and last of the nuggets of winter's wisdom that I'll name is to prepare. In other words, to ready ourselves for the new life that will emerge when the cold retreats, when the snow and the ice melt, because spring will be coming. We cannot rush it. We cannot will it to come faster, but we can be comforted in the deepest of winter with the knowledge that spring will, in its own time, come. New life will emerge again. New chances will pop up. New opportunities will bloom for us and for the world around us. Now, I would be remiss if I did not finally point out that if we do not listen and take heed, winter, as all the seasons, is going to get louder, more assertive, and more extreme if we continue on the path we're on with widespread disregard to what we know about climate change and its effects. The children often get it more than we do, and are consequently leading the way in many cases, as the example in our UU moment today. But we all need to be paying attention to the underlying message of the planet, that our collective ways of living in disharmony with the earth must stop. There are dire consequences as the extreme weather events being experienced more often and in more places continue to destroy lives and communities. So even as we listen to the wisdom of winter personally, let's also receive this wisdom communally, because the same lessons I've already named could be applied to our habits of consumption and our depletion of the earth's resources. Together, all of us need to slow down, notice, be careful, tend to basics, rest, replenish, and prepare for a different way of living. I'm sure that you will notice other bits of winter's wisdom in this season, which I urge you to share with one another here in Coffee Hour, on our Facebook page, or in other ways. Again, as Unitarian Universalists, we are explicitly encouraged to consider the wisdom of the earth and her cycles and seasons as a sacred source of our knowing. The wisdom of winter can be a source of strength for us if we receive and honor it, and I hope that we will. May it be so for us, and may you find something about which to marvel in our winter wonderland this week. Our closing song this morning is Go Lift It Up, which when we gather together is in our teal hymnal. This version is led by the First Unitarian Church of Baltimore.
We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we meet again.
Need to blow it out. There.
Our closing words are from Norman V. Naylor. Reminded that we are part and parcel of the universe, let us go forth from the quiet of this hour, encouraged to strive towards faithfulness, to the best in ourselves, to the best in others, and to the best in the whole of creation. Whatever winter brings you, whatever you encounter, receive and hold it, and look for some blessing. Go in peace. Our virtual worship has ended, but our connection to one another and this earth endures. Go blessed to be a blessing for others.